What happens when Hollywood's toughest action hero walks into daytime television's most hostile territory and refuses to back down? When Sylvester Stallone stepped onto The View's set that Tuesday morning, nobody expected the explosive confrontation that would unfold live on national television. This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a full-blown verbal war that would end with security escorts and network executives scrambling to contain the damage. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because this story gets absolutely wild. The tension was palpable from the moment Stallone walked onto the set. Joy Behar had been openly critical of the Rocky star's latest project on social media for weeks, calling it another testosterone-fueled fantasy for aging men who refuse to grow up. Her co-hosts had tried to convince her to tone it down for the interview, but Joy was never one to pull her punches, especially when the cameras were rolling. Well, Joy said with that signature smirk as Stallone settled into his chair. Look who decided to grace us with his presence. Sylvester Stallone, the man who's made a career out of playing the same character over and over again. Stallone's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained steady. Good morning, Joy. I'm here to talk about my new film, if that's all right with you. Oh, we'll get to your movie, Joy waved dismissively. But first, I think our viewers deserve to know why you think it's appropriate to keep making these violent, dated films when the world is crying out for more meaningful content. The other co-hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't how interviews typically started on The View, but Joy was clearly on a mission. Violent and outdated. Stallone leaned forward, his famous gravelly voice carrying a hint of irritation. Joy, with all due respect, you clearly haven't seen the film. It's about redemption, family, and finding purpose later in life. Themes I'd think someone your age might appreciate. The audience gasped at the subtle age dig, and Joy's face flushed red. Someone my age? Excuse me? Are you seriously going to sit there and patronize me on my own show? I'm not patronizing anyone, Stallone replied calmly. I'm simply pointing out that you're criticizing something you admittedly know nothing about. That seems pretty irresponsible for someone in your position. Joy's voice rose an octave. My position? And what position is that exactly? The position of someone who calls out Hollywood's toxic masculinity when she sees it. The position of someone who gets paid to have opinions about things they haven't bothered to research. Stallone shot back, his patience clearly wearing thin. You want to talk about toxic? How about jumping to conclusions and spreading negativity without having all the facts? The studio audience was dead silent now, sensing this was spiraling far beyond a typical celebrity interview. The other co-hosts were looking at each other with wide eyes, unsure of how to intervene. Joy slammed her hand on the table. Don't you dare lecture me about facts, Sylvester. I've been in this business longer than you think, and I know empty machismo when I see it. Your whole career has been built on the fantasy that violence solves problems. Violence solves problems? Stallone's voice was getting louder now. Lady, Rocky was about an underdog who never gave up. Rambo dealt with the psychological trauma of war veterans. These stories meant something to people. They inspired them. What exactly are you inspiring people to do, Joy? Tear each other down on national television? Joy stood up from her chair, her face now bright red with anger. How dare you question what I do? I've been fighting for women's rights and social justice while you've been flexing in front of cameras and pretending to be a tough guy. Pretending? Stallone also rose to his feet, towering over the table. I've worked my ass off for everything I've achieved. I wrote Rocky when I was broke and sleeping in bus stations. I've employed thousands of people, raised millions for charity, and created characters that give people hope. What have you done besides complain? The tension in the studio was electric. Camera operators were getting closer, sensing they were capturing television gold, while producers in the control room were frantically trying to decide whether to cut to commercial. What have I done? Joy's voice was shaking with rage now. I've used my platform to hold people like you accountable, to call out the damage your movies do to young men who think they need to solve everything with their fists. My movies? Stallone laughed, but there was no humor in it. Joy, you want to talk about damage? How about the damage you do every single day by teaching people that it's okay to attack others without knowing the facts? That it's acceptable to be cruel and dismissive? As long as you call it activism? The other co-hosts finally tried to jump in. Maybe we should take a quick break, one of them suggested weakly. But both Joy and Stallone ignored her completely. I am not cruel, Joy screamed, spit flying from her mouth. I am honest. Something this town desperately needs more of. You can't handle the truth about what your movies represent. The truth? Stallone's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more weight than if he'd been shouting. You want the truth, Joy? The truth is you're a bitter, angry person who tears others down to make herself feel important. The truth is you've never created anything meaningful in your life, so you spend your time destroying what others have built. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. Joy's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, her face cycling through various shades of red and purple. The audience was completely silent, and even the camera operators had stopped moving. Joy finally found her voice, but when she spoke, it came out as a strangled shriek. How dare you! How dare you come on my show and call me bitter! Security! Get this man out of here right now! But Stallone wasn't finished. He leaned across the table, his voice still deadly quiet, but carrying the weight of decades of frustration with media attacks. I'm not going anywhere until I'm done talking. You started this, Joy, so you're going to hear me finish it. You don't get to finish anything. Joy was practically foaming at the mouth now. This is my show. My set. My rules. And I'm telling you to get out. Your show? Stallone's laugh was cold and cutting. This isn't your show, Joy. This is a platform that ABC gives you to entertain people, and right now you're showing everyone exactly why daytime television is dying. People are tired of watching angry hosts attack their guests. One of the other co-hosts tried desperately to regain control. Sylvester, maybe we could talk about your charitable work instead, or your family, or... No, Stallone cut her off without taking his eyes off Joy. I came here to be interviewed about my film, but instead I walked into an ambush. And I'm not leaving until Joy here explains to your viewers why she thinks it's acceptable to launch personal attacks without having seen the movie she's criticizing. Joy's hands were shaking now. Whether from rage or adrenaline was impossible to tell. I don't need to see your stupid movie to know what it is. It's the same garbage you've been peddling for 40 years. Punch this, shoot that, flex your muscles and everything will be fine. You just proved my point, Stallone said, his voice getting stronger. You're so blinded by your own prejudices that you can't even pretend to be objective. This movie is about a man dealing with his mortality, trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter, learning that strength isn't always physical. But you don't care about any of that because it doesn't fit your narrative. Joy slammed both hands on the table now, making all the coffee mugs jump. Don't you psychoanalyze me, you muscle-headed has-been? I know exactly what your movies are about. They're about selling fantasies to men who can't handle the real world. Has been? Stallone's eyebrows shot up. Joy, my last 3 films grossed over $200 million worldwide. When was the last time anyone paid to hear your opinions outside of this studio? The audience actually gasped at that one, and Joy's face went from red to white and back to red again. That's it. I don't care what the producers say, I want him out, now. But the other co-hosts were looking at each other with something approaching panic. They knew good television when they saw it, and the ratings for this segment were probably going through the roof. The woman who usually played Peacemaker tried one more time. Maybe we could all just take a breath and... No, Joy shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Stallone. This man came here to promote his movie, and instead he's attacking me personally. This is harassment. Stallone laughed, and this time there was genuine amusement in it. Harassment? Joy, you've spent the last 10 minutes calling me outdated, toxic, violent, and empty. I respond with facts about your behavior, and suddenly you're the victim? Do you hear yourself? Facts? Joy was on her feet again, pacing behind the table like a caged animal. You call personal insults facts? You call attacking a woman on her own show facts? I'm not attacking you because you're a woman, Stallone said, his voice dropping to that dangerous whisper again. I'm calling out your behavior because you're a bully. And bullies don't get to hide behind their gender when someone finally stands up to them. The word bully hit Joy like a physical blow. Her mouth dropped open, and for a moment she looked genuinely stunned. Then the rage came back twice as strong. A bully? I'm a bully? You're the one who built a career on glorifying violence. You're the one who teaches young men that the way to solve problems is with your fists. And you have the nerve to call me a bully? Yes, Stallone said simply. That's exactly what I'm calling you. Because right now, on live television, you're demonstrating exactly what bullying looks like. You attack, you name call, you try to shut down anyone who disagrees with you, and when they fight back, you play victim. Joy's voice cracked as she screamed, "Get out! Get out of my studio right now!" "It's not your studio, Joy," Stallone reminded her calmly. "It belongs to ABC, and last time I checked, I was invited here by their producers to discuss my film, something you still haven't let me do." The camera was capturing every moment of Joy's meltdown in high definition. Her carefully styled hair was disheveled from running her hands through it. Her makeup was smudged from sweating, and her voice was getting hoarser with every word. "I don't care who invited you. I don't care what the producers want. This is my segment, and I want you gone." "Your segment?" Stallone stood up to his full height, making Joy look even smaller by comparison. "Joy, this stopped being your segment the moment you decided to ambush me instead of doing your job. Now it's just a woman having a public breakdown because someone finally called her out on her behavior. That was the final straw." Joy completely lost what was left of her composure and started screaming at the top of her lungs. "Security! Where is security? I want this man arrested. He's threatening me." "Threatening you?" Stallone looked genuinely incredulous. "Joy, I haven't moved from this spot or raised my voice above a normal conversation level. The only person making threats here is you." But Joy was beyond rational thought now. She was jabbing her finger toward the exits and shrieking, "Out! Out! Out!" like she was casting a spell. The studio doors finally burst open, and 3 security guards rushed in, looking confused about what exactly they were supposed to be securing. Joy immediately pointed at Stallone like she was identifying a criminal in a lineup. "Him! Remove him immediately. He's being aggressive and threatening." The head of security, a professional-looking man in his 50s, looked from Joy to Stallone and back again. Stallone was standing calmly beside his chair, hands at his sides, while Joy was red-faced and gesticulating wildly. "Ma'am, what exactly is the threat?" the security chief asked, clearly trying to assess the situation. "He attacked me, verbally attacked me on my own show." Joy was practically hyperventilating now. Stallone addressed the security team directly, his voice perfectly composed. "Gentlemen, I was invited here as a guest to discuss my new film. Instead of conducting an interview, Miss Behar spent the entire time launching personal attacks. When I defended myself with facts, she demanded I be removed." The security chief looked uncomfortable. He could see the camera still rolling, the audience watching in stunned silence, and the other co-hosts looking mortified. This was clearly not a standard security situation. "Sir, are you willing to leave voluntarily?" he asked Stallone. "Absolutely," Stallone replied immediately. "But I'd like to say one final thing to your viewers first." "No," Joy screamed. "No more talking. Get him out now." But the security chief held up a hand. He'd been doing this job long enough to know when someone was being reasonable and when someone wasn't. "Ma'am, if he's willing to leave voluntarily, maybe we should let him finish his thought." Joy looked like she was about to have a stroke. "Are you kidding me? I'm telling you to remove him, and you're negotiating?" Stallone turned to face the camera directly, ignoring Joy's continued ranting. "Folks, I came here today to talk about a film I'm proud of, a story about family and redemption that I think people will connect with. Instead, I walked into what can only be described as an ambush by someone who admits she hasn't even seen the movie she's attacking." "Stop talking!" Joy shrieked, but Stallone continued calmly. "This is exactly what's wrong with media today. People form opinions based on assumptions, and then attack anyone who challenges those assumptions. I've been making movies for over 4 decades, and I've always tried to tell stories that inspire people, that show them they can overcome obstacles and achieve their dreams." Joy tried to interrupt again, but her voice cracked and came out as nothing more than a hoarse whisper. She'd literally screamed herself voiceless. "The movie I came here to discuss today is about a man my age learning that true strength comes from admitting your mistakes, making amends with the people you've hurt, and finding new purpose when everyone thinks you're finished. I think that's a message worth sharing, regardless of what some people might assume. He turned to look directly at Joy, who was now slumped in her chair, exhausted from her outburst. And Joy, for what it's worth, I hope you get a chance to actually watch the film someday. You might be surprised by what you find. The security chief nodded respectfully. Thank you, sir. If you're ready to go? Stallone picked up his jacket and walked toward the exit with dignity and tact. As he reached the door, he turned back one more time. Ladies, he addressed the other co-hosts, thank you for having me on. I'm sorry your show got hijacked by someone's personal agenda. Joy tried to say something, but only managed a strangled croak. Her voice was completely gone. As Stallone disappeared through the studio doors, the remaining co-hosts sat in stunned silence. The audience didn't know whether to clap, boo, or just sit there in shock. Joy was slumped in her chair, sweating and voiceless, looking like she'd just been through a war zone. The woman who'd been trying to mediate finally found her voice. Well, that was certainly unexpected. Another co-host tried to salvage something from the wreckage. Maybe we should take a quick commercial break and regroup? But Joy was shaking her head frantically, pointing at the cameras and making cutting motions across her throat. She wanted the cameras off, but it was too late. The damage was done, and it had all been captured in high definition for the world to see. The director finally called for commercial, and the studio erupted in chaos. Producers were running around with phones pressed to their ears, makeup artists were rushing to Joy's side with tissues and water, and the other co-hosts were huddled together trying to figure out how to proceed with the rest of the show. Joy herself was a complete wreck. Her perfectly styled hair was matted with sweat. Her makeup had run down her face in streaks, and she couldn't speak above a whisper. The woman who'd started the show by attacking Stallone's supposed machismo had ended it by having a complete emotional breakdown on live television. When they returned from commercial, Joy's chair was empty. The remaining co-hosts awkwardly explained that she wasn't feeling well and had to step away, but everyone watching knew exactly what had happened. Social media was already exploding with clips of the confrontation, and the hashtag Joy versus Stallone was trending within minutes. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who'd witnessed the whole thing. Joy had tried to paint Stallone as an aggressive, toxic, masculine stereotype, but he'd remained calm, articulate, and respectful throughout the entire encounter. Meanwhile, she'd devolved into exactly the kind of unhinged, irrational behavior she claimed to oppose. In the end, Stallone had walked away with his dignity intact, while Joy had destroyed her own credibility in front of millions of viewers. She'd proven his point better than he ever could have himself, that some people are so consumed by their own anger and prejudices that they can't see past them long enough to have a rational conversation. The whole incident became a masterclass in how not to conduct an interview, and what happens when someone's personal biases completely override their professional responsibilities. Stallone never did get to properly discuss his film that day, but he'd accomplished something far more important. He'd shown the world that sometimes the best way to deal with a bully is simply to stand your ground and let them destroy themselves. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Did Joy get what she deserved, or did Stallone go too far? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.